You are listening to the Small Town Big Talk Show, the weekly podcast for small town people with big dreams and ideas. I'm your host, Rebecca Undum, and each week we'll cover a topic meant to inspire, encourage, and empower you to live big in your small town. Although it has its challenges, nothing beats small town living, and we're committed to sharing the best of what's working in the communities we serve. So enjoy this episode, and we hope it helps you to bloom where you've been planted. My guest on today's episode is Patrick Kirby, founder of Do Good Better Consulting and one of my dearest friends. I could talk to the guy for hours. And this is a longer episode, but we really are touching on a variety of things relative to this challenging time that we find ourselves in. Specifically, we're talking about how to reposition live events and do that with purpose. Because what we're finding is that if there ever has been a time where we've been challenged to think very differently about how we want to show up for the people that we serve, it's this time. All of us are feeling the loss, the collective grief that comes with having to stop doing things the way that we've always done them, the events that we've always hosted. We talk about community events that are getting canceled. Major things are getting taken away from us, but we also talk about how while something comes off of our plates, that means there's space opening up somewhere else. And Patrick and I really spend a lot of time talking about how we can leverage that and how we can grow from this really challenging time. And so my fervent hope is that after listening to this, you feel a little more empowered, a little more encouraged, and hopefully a little more equipped to create your future despite the challenges that we're facing right now. So get some paper out. You're going to want to make some notes. And I hope you get a lot out of this great conversation with my good friend, Patrick Kirby. Hey friend, Patrick Kirby, welcome to the Small Town Big Talk Show. Again, welcome back.
It's nice to be back. I'm very excited because when we chatted last time, and I know you hear this a lot, the world was a different place.
Yeah, yes, it was.
And it was just this bizarro transformation so quickly that, I'm glad I get an opportunity to chat with you because both kind of our collective worlds that we live in, both small towns and nonprofits in general, have been sort of collectively turned on their heads.
Totally. And then you see like a little child's elbow in the corner. Did you see that there?
I did. I like that.
Oh, there. He sticks it back in there. This is the world. And this is a huge part of the challenge as well. I mean, beyond what you're talking about. And it's funny, you have a great podcast called the Do Good Better, official Do Good Better podcast, which everyone listening should go out and listen to, especially if you are a nonprofit. But I think it's like, I've been trying not to say like special COVID-19 episode. It's not even so much that for me. And I think you and I, we see eye to eye on this, that our world is not going to go back to the way it was. So it's not COVID-19 specific, but it is kind of specific to, okay, so what now? And not just right now, but 6 months from now, a year from now, going forward. And, everybody listening to this likely knows that I was launching a nonprofit and I've had 2 big events on the docket. And I'm a speaker by trade. That's what I do. And so, when all of your revenue screeches to a halt because business as you did it, you can't do it that way anymore. It sucks.
It does.
Big time, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah, it's generally terrible. So here's the other news though. And I think a lot of people have made this point, but I make it when I chat with clients or I talk with nonprofits who are kind of hanging out. After 9/11, the world completely changed too. And then we thought it was so weird to take off our shoes and our belts and stick a gun in your pocket and whatever.
Yep.
And now it's just an annoyance, but it's things that we do all the time in the airport. Again, when we go back to the airport, it just became the reality. It wasn't a quote new normal. It was just normal.
Right.
So
right.
There's a mental hurdle to get under that we are not going to be in a socially gathering place that is probably acceptable or safe for the foreseeable future. And that sucks. Especially to us who are extroverts and we need hugging and high-fiving and to just be fulfilled as a human.
Yeah.
But that accepted reality now allows you to just now grow or do something different or do the things that you want to do. And you are going to be given an extraordinary amount of grace for things that don't go completely perfect.
Right.
Because people are going to see that you're trying and you're doing your best and you're kicking ass and you're the one that took the risk. Mm-hmm. And that you will see the reward in that people will accept this way of doing it because you have to. Because there's no other way to do it now. This is it.
Right. So there's a couple things I want to back up and pull out and highlight that you just said. One of the things being that like events. And the reason, okay, so who we're talking to right now, right? We got nonprofit people probably listening because people love you. Nonprofit world loves Patrick Kirby and Do Good Better, as they should, because what's not to love? But then we're also talking to small town, like individual business owners. We're talking to communities. We're talking to people that hosted events as a core part of how they serve their audiences, right?
Yeah.
And so, there's you and I, people like us that love to get our hands on people, like physically, like, let me touch you. I always say, like, why did God give me these long, freaky arms if it wasn't to wrap around people? Like, obviously, personal space has always been a challenge for me. So there's those of us that like are missing that as a core part of who we are. But then there's just the meaning making.
Yeah.
That's what events are, Patrick. They create meaning for people. And so even our introverted friends are struggling through this because it's also the traditions. Like I was telling you, our small town community festival that has happened for 47 years in a row, isn't happening this year. Obviously, right?
The date we're recording this, the North Dakota State Fair is canceled. I don't think that's ever happened.
Right, exactly. So it's like there's so much to unpack with how all of that feels. So we're missing. And I think the grief is legitimate. I think we need to like pause and say, yep, it is going to feel sad and it's going to feel depressing. And you may actually cry about it. Real tears came on Friday when we got the email from our chamber. And I was like, it's actually happening. And I think I said to you before, like, not surprising. I'm not like, what? I thought everything was going to be normal. Like, I don't feel that way, but it's wrestling now with what that means. And then from a business standpoint, and a community standpoint, I'm so excited to talk to you because you just successfully pulled off a week and a half ago a virtual conference. And again, I think it's coming back to like, what's the reason we're doing these things? And how can we still show up for our people in this new kind of uncharted territory? And you're right. So much of what we did before, like the 9/11 thing, it really is a great example of this because it isn't a new normal. It's just going to be what becomes normal. And we have choices, right? You can rail against it.
Yep.
You can deny it. You can stick your head in the sand and pretend that it's not happening. You can actually put your head up and go, well, I hate that. Nope, I'm not doing that. Or you can say, what if? And what could this look like? And how can I serve people even despite these challenges? And like you said, it's going to be a time of growth for everybody. None of us grow when things are coasting and it's easy. That isn't growth. It feels good. Okay. Like coasting feels amazing. Who doesn't want to coast? I get this, but true grit, perseverance, character building, all of that stuff comes from moments such as this.
Yeah. I'm not one of those people that believes you have to fail in order to learn, but you have to be challenged or being put in a position of uncomfortability. This rewarding people for failing thing has never been a thing that I've just liked. I just don't want to do it. When I started the business, I had, 3 kids. I could not afford to fail. So I was purposeful. And I think there is the word of the day that I think we need to talk about is that when you are making this tweak in your business, you're making this tweak in your events, you're making this tweak in just acknowledging that this is just reality now, is that you have to do things now with purpose more than ever, because that's going to differentiate yourself and draw people towards you rather than just a thing that you do, right? People went to your street dance, street festival thing because it was a thing to do, but it was also purposeful because it was your community. So you need to double down on the fact that you're doing something for your community, not just because it's a thing you do. And those, right? Yeah. And I think those that position themselves with purpose and foresight and doing it for the greater good because there's some underlying human emotion that says you want to do great, amazing things is the way to go. Right. And that's with fundraising, and that's with events in the community, and that's with your business and even personal, I think, relationships, is that you need to be personal. I think we're learning a lot about who matters to you most during this crisis from a personal relationships. Who are you reaching out to? Who do you miss the most? And have you done anything with it?
Right.
When you're talking about donors that mean the most to you, who are the ones that you're reaching out to, the ones that you're saying hi to, the ones you're asking the question, how are you doing? Not how I'm doing, how are you doing? That's going to really differentiate yourself between the person who's just trying to raise money out of the gate and just transactionally try to keep your organization afloat? What business client are you reaching out to on a regular basis that you feel that you need to do a little extra for, or the clients that you miss most walking into your store? I think everything is going to come down to purpose. Why are you doing the things you're doing?
Agreed. I was on your show 2 weeks ago. It was before your conference, I know. And we were talking about mission, right? We were talking about how important it is now more than ever to say kind of like, what is the point of all of this? Yeah. So if you have a business and you have a nonprofit, what's the point of it? And that's where your purpose derives from, right? Coming back to your mission, coming back to what you're there to actually do. And then, I mean, yes, I get that, like brainstorming and creatively processing stuff, it doesn't come naturally to everybody. Like give me a giant whiteboard or you a giant whiteboard. And it's just like fun, right? Yes. We're just on fire to create stuff. But not everybody feels like that. So I would ask you, as somebody that does brainstorming really well, spitballing, if you will. Okay, so let's say we've got somebody listening. They're like, I know what I'm here to do, but I just don't know like what to do next. What are some good questions that you feel like we can be asking ourselves right now to maybe start to arrive at what a new something could be, right? Yeah. To create that same meaning.
And I would do this to people who are brainstorming centric and those who are not is, what have you always wanted to do, but you've never been able to have the opportunity or the time to figure out how to get there? That big, hairy, audacious goal, and we hear it a lot in brainstorming and leadership classes and one of those, trainings is they go, all right, let's do the BHAG.
Yeah.
Big, hairy, audacious goal. This is the best time to do that.
Yeah.
Because you are on pause and because things are slowing down, you have the opportunity to figure out what you've always wanted your business to do or always wanted your nonprofit to grow to or execute. And now you have the time to figure it out. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have all the craziest ideas in the entire world, but think of it as those how to catch a killer shows on Netflix that you've probably already binged, which is in the center of the page is the person you're trying to get. Mm-hmm. And all the red strings that are
the red strings,
right?
Yep.
This is your time to do the red. Yeah, this is the time to do the red string bit and figuring out what you can execute. So once you write all those lines out, once you get the question of what you want to do or where you want to go, maybe it's just getting back to where you were pre-pandemic shutdown. Maybe that's the goal is I want to make as much money or I want to succeed. Great, that's your goal. So when you get all those lines of like, what do I need to do? Is it marketing? Is it calls? Is it relationship building? Is it making this? Is it raising this money? Is it putting this product together? Eliminate everything that you can't do immediately. And then prioritize which one you can do. You can pick up the phone. If you're a nonprofit, you can pick up the phone right now and make 5 phone calls to people who are supporting you and asking the question, how are you doing? I'm just thinking about you.
Right.
Great. First great step. Anecdotally, every one of my clients who have executed that as a step have not only raised more money, but they've raised their stature in the eyes of their donors because you're not asking them to give you money. You're asking them how they're doing. You're investing in a relationship there.
Similarly, I want to say that like where I was at as a new nonprofit, I think another avenue of this. So whether, and again, it's applying this concept to more than just a nonprofit. That's such an important one for nonprofits. Like you're going to find people at home right now. So pick up the phone. Like they're there. I mean, there are people that we can get that previously felt ungettable. That's something that I don't know that everybody's really paying attention to. As a nonprofit that didn't have donors yet, like I didn't even have donors yet. I had certain partners, right? One of the things that I was really intentional about was thinking, okay, who did I want potentially as partners and still reaching out to them? So it could be prospective people as well and saying, you're in this time, I'm in this time. Here's how I am here and I'm available. I've said so many times, like my work, the good that I can do as a nonprofit is not on whether or not they take me up on the offer, but it's the fact that I'm offering. So if I'm offering support or I'm offering my help or I'm offering partnership or I'm offering whatever, that is how you keep your name in the forefront as somebody that wants to help and is there. And so a lot of people are like, I don't know what I need help with right now. And they don't. But I can tell you, if you keep reminding them that you're there to support them, whether it's, just thinking that broadly, that is actually very valuable right now.
Asking the question, how I can help.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
And if you're a business owner and you're looking to make a sale with some potential client that you have, you call that client up right now. How can I help? I know we're not even working together, but how can I help you be successful? Because the minute they're successful, because you help them out, they're going to come back to you and say, well, this was invaluable. I didn't even, we didn't have to go search for this person or this group. I'm now a part of it. Or you're reaching out to a customer or a client of yours that has been a regular. Hey, I know we can't work with each other right now, but that's okay. How can I help you?
Right. Well, and going back to your red lines,
yeah.
Like if you think about all the things you could do, right? So like you said, marketing or sales or whatever those elements are, what if one of the red lines is actually to another provider of that thing, right? Yeah. There's such a beautiful time for collaboration because everybody's business is down. So if I can partner with you and you can serve me and I can serve you and we can swap or trade, trades are huge right now, I think. Just looking at how do we work together because everybody needs a boost.
I'm convinced more than ever right now that bigger and better businesses are going to be built because of this. And the reason is, and I didn't think about this a lot, as a small business owner, you don't think about conglomerates or how conglomerates are made. But they're basically out of somebody has a good idea but can't execute it. So they find everybody else who can get them there. And now they all are partnered up and they build this thing that is more massive than they ever dreamed of, is because everybody's looking for the same thing, which is how do we thrive out of this rather than just get by.
Right.
So it's me saying that, all right, well, I think this is a precursor to something that we'll announce later on, sort of next month. But I have a dream of building an events company for nonprofits and small businesses. I think it's great. I know that I've done events for 15 years. I know that I've executed a handful of events recently that are gone virtual that I think everybody's going to have to go to. I can't run the tech side. I can't run the camera behind it. I can't run the run of show, but I can creatively curate an incredible agenda and host and craft and design and build this whole wonderful thing, but I need other partners to make this happen. And so I went out and got them.
Right.
That becomes the new thing. It's partnerships because they have their own businesses, but we see value in working together because we can create something new that's going to help us all.
Yep.
Because there's a need. And the simple question is that we asked each other was, how can we help each other? Number one.
Yep.
And formulating a whole list of things that we provide is then we go to other groups and nonprofits and organizations and businesses and now how can we help you? It's the same question in larger scales that is going to create something, I think, remarkable and something radically different and new and simple by asking that question of how you can give purpose to others or how you have your purpose in your business. And I think you're dead onto it. This is the greatest time for collaboration ever because everybody's looking on how to move the needle forward. And that might be you. That might be you or it might be someone else too.
Well, and I'll tell you the other thing I'm finding as I'm going through this time is what's really coming up for me are the organizations that are clearly in alignment with me and the ones that are clearly not.
Yes.
And I want to discuss this. So I told you about Priya Parker, right? Wrote this book called The Art of Gathering. And just for anybody listening, if you do events, listen or read the book because it's so practical. And it was stuff I had never heard being an events person forever as well, right? Had done events, spoken at events, seen a bunch of events. It was really great. She also now is doing a podcast called Together Apart to kind of address her core principles in this strange time. And a phrase that she used is that she talks a lot about purpose. So the word that you used was purpose. It's what she really thinks we don't spend enough time on when we're planning an event. It's like, what are you actually doing? One of her phrases is that purpose is your bouncer. When it comes to like who gets in and who gets out, it's about purpose. And so similarly, when I think about mission and collaborations, mission is my bouncer. If you don't want to do this work with me and you don't get it, I'm sorry, you're bounced because I don't have time, So I think it's kind of cool. Like if we're serious about it and we're intentional about it, and purposeful, which is how you started this whole thing off, like be purposeful, you're going to see some really cool things happen, but you've got to do something. I think so many people are waiting.
You hit it. So you can talk about purpose, and we should talk about purpose. And I love purpose as bouncer. That's great. Focus in on who your niche people are and then double and triple down on that. And you think you're dead on it. But what you just brought up is once you figure that out, you got to jump. And I've been explaining this to a handful of people is that you are going to be given so much grace right now. Everyone is in this position where nobody knows how to do anything. Right. And everybody's just learning how to get on these tech calls. And, it's crazy to us because we've been on Zoom for a long time. But people are just hitting like, oh, this is kind of neat. They don't know how to use any of this technology. The technology is not broadly used in a large space, even though you probably are like, oh, digital events, virtual events, I'm already bored with it. No, you aren't. And the people who are involved in it do that so unbelievably well that you'll never experience. Like, it's a totally different experience. But the fact of the matter is that people will give you a really, really, really long rope because you have the audacity to pull the trigger and do something about it. And you found your true north and you're finding your calling and you're going to execute and you're going to do it. If there's one thing that you can take from just listening here, if you have one of those little inklings and that gut instinct that says, you know, if I did this, I think we could be really great at this nonprofit, or I think my business could shift if I do this one thing, and you're nervous about how people are going to react to it, do it. Because if it doesn't work, you're like, well, say we tried, and then you're going to get credit for trying. If it works, you're going to be hailed as a genius for making a move. And if you learn a bunch of stuff, then you can pass that on to other people to give them purpose, and then you are the one that lifts the tide that rises and helps lift of the boats.
Right.
And then you're going to become the leader of the group that are successful because of what you learned, and you're going to give all the credit because you tried it first.
Right. And so back to your comment about failing, like having to fail to learn. I don't think it's failure. It's the willingness to try is how you learn. I don't conflate those two things. And I think a lot of times just kind of in the vernacular, it's like willing to try means, yes, that you might fall on your face, but that's never a failure to me. Not doing anything is the failure.
That's the failure. Exactly.
The only way to fail right now is just to sit back and that's basically either denial or resistance of this whole thing. Right? We can't deny it. It's obvious. It's here. And we can't resist it because we need to figure out how to work with this. So many things. Oh my gosh. I just love talking to you. Of course, you're my friend, and you're so smart, and it's just so fun.
This is just the best. Yeah.
Let's talk about your conference a little bit, because I think I was telling you, I participated in it in the whole day, and definitely not exactly from the standpoint of a participant, because of course I was thinking about I was taking like a macro level of this thing, right? Because I'm one of those people that I have said it myself, and I've heard so many people say it. Oh, these virtual things, we're lucky to have it, but it's not the same as meeting face to face. Okay, got it. Got it, noted. We understand it. But I discovered as a participant, and this kind of, I wasn't being critical. I was just watching everything with an actual, like, the mindset of what can I learn from watching this? There were some things that were beautiful discoveries, I'll call it, from watching your virtual conference. And there were things that I think the virtual piece of it made it better than face-to-face. So I would love to hear as the person who orchestrated it, coordinated it, and moved up a deadline, folks. Like, if you don't know Patrick and you don't know his team, his conference was a face-to-face conference slated for mid to late July. What was the date?
July 16th.
16th, right in the middle of July. This whole thing comes, and he says, these nonprofits need this now more than they're going to need it in July. We're moving it up. We're moving it up 3.5 months, and we're doing it virtually. So it takes on the challenge, just like, that's like the bull by the horns, I think. I can actually, and he went, they need it now, right? So it was in service. It was purposeful. You had all of that down. But I don't think, so again, as a speaker myself, as a person who's planned events myself, the fear and the panic and all the strangly feeling I felt watching you pull this thing off, I can't overstate it. Like, how I'm also an empath, so I take on people's crap. I don't know if you notice, but just thinking about all the things that could go wrong and, all of that. Now, putting all of that aside, that you just have to find some level of comfort with and roll. You got to do it.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you took away that you were like, oh my gosh, this is actually better? Because people need to hear this, Patrick, because nobody wants to believe that a virtual event could be better.
Yeah.
Because we just cling so tightly to our standard ways of doing everything, right?
Yep. And again, I think it was really interesting to bump it up. So we planned this in 5 weeks. We converted an entire conference that we had planned in July, and we had 4 months to plan, and did it in about 5 weeks. From remarketing it repositioning it, reselling it.
And new slate of speakers.
New slate of speakers, complete, like it was a brand new slate of speakers, which is one of the things I want to talk about.
Totally. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the fact that we said it out loud and we said it in public with saying we're going to move this and we're going to go completely online because of our purpose is to serve as many nonprofits as possible in a way that they can use the information now rather than later. Yeah. We knew that in July, it would have been too late for a lot of nonprofits to make a pivot or make a transition or mentally get through the hurdles of how do I fundraise now or how do I get my brain correct so that I can be ready for summer into fall into winter where this might pop up again and all of a sudden we got to re-deal with this stuff. If I can get my brain right in my nonprofit right now, we don't have to worry about those things. So my mental positioning was that.
And can I stop you real quick? Because I think that's something to point out is that you knew your audience. You knew the fact that so many of the people that would need the Do-Gooders Conference, they're the people that have golf scrambles. And I mean, so summer and that like late or early fall is peak times to be hosting some of these major fundraising galas. You knew that those people were going to need you now. Because like you said, they couldn't wait. I mean, already, again, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but like the questions they were asking you, so many of them has been like, what about this? And what about that?
Yeah. You know, part of this was technical stuff aside. We knew that we were going to be techie and we're great. Right. So number one, we hired and we got together with somebody who just knew how to do this stuff. So I wouldn't have to deal with mentally figuring out the tech side of it. So if you're considering doing a virtual event, that was it. What I also wanted to prove was like, listen, if you've got galas, like you said, coming out in the fall, you need to start thinking about transitioning now because I don't think this thing is going away.
Yeah.
So part of what you just indicated was during the entire event. Now, let me give you we did it for 8 hours. It was from 9 to 4 with a virtual happy hour at the end.
I thought that was insane.
Insane.
When you first, and I was like, and honestly, I thought, it's Patrick, it'll be fine. Like, I know you well enough to know that it would be, but I honestly, like, and this again, people need to hear this because I was there. I was there for the whole thing.
I'm going to throw out numbers at you because not only did we put a survey out afterwards, we have had a handful of conversations with all the participants who were speaking and presenting, et cetera. So I know this is a case study of taking a risk on ourselves because we wanted to do it first to show everybody else that they could do it. So one of the things was it was 8 hours long with a half an hour for happy hour at the end with a live band performing across town.
Yeah.
So what we did is we had 2 stages. One, we had it at a place that we did our base of operations at, Pines in Davenport, North Dakota. We also had at the Avalon Event Center, we had local musicians in between speakers performing live. I'll get to that in a second. That's a weird one to deal with. And again, this is the audacity of doing something this grand on a platform that not people are comfortable with. Yep. Because we knew that taking the risk would inspire others to do awesome things. So throughout the 8 hours, we had 92% of everyone who purchased a ticket was on for the majority of the time. We had a 92% rate of people who were on the whole time for 8 hours.
Yep.
Online. The other thing is that I usually base my thoughts of we've done a great event on a net promoter score. This is mumbo jumbo, but I think you need to hear it, which is one, do people give ratings of 9s or 10s of they would share this with their employees or their colleagues or their friends? Would you recommend it? The average 9s or 10s, the net promoter score across the board nationwide through 10,000 events is 44%. 44% of people would recommend it to a friend. We eclipsed over 60%.
Yep.
With our presentation. The reason we did it is because we knew that nobody would be able to withstand 60-minute keynote speakers for 8 hours for the time. So we cut it down to 25 minutes, which means you had like a doubling of a TED Talk to get enough information to do tangible resources, etc., to build excitement but not bore people. So we were self-aware enough to know that nobody wants to listen to somebody for 60 minutes.
Yep.
In between those,
except for podcast episodes like this one.
But this is this. You can put pause.
Totally kidding.
And of course, our voices are this is just music to people's ears. But I think a lot of lessons we're going to create here.
Yeah.
So we did, in between, we took breaks, musical breaks from local artists. Because one of the things that's near and dear to my heart is local art and theater and music and that kind of stuff, which are being ignored in a global pandemic because of the hierarchy of needs of giving. Music and art ain't one of them.
You made a post on Facebook last week sometime that I just want to highlight. I want to bring back forward because it was so beautifully stated that I think I may have, like a tear may have occurred. The idea that art and culture, so all the things, theater, music, dance, painting, writing, all of it is the thing that's going to save our souls during this time. Like keep us it's not about financial stability. And that's why Maslow's hierarchy of needs you just brought up. Like, I get it that it's not foundational to security and stability and feeling safe and surviving, but it is the thing that keeps us sane. Yeah. And you so beautifully put it, you were encouraging everybody in your post to donate to, something that they love, but we never give enough credence to the arts. And that's where, again, talking about meaning making, that's where it comes from. So I just wanted to give another plug. If you were listening to this and you haven't found a way to contribute back in your community to the things that drive those things forward, really consider what your world would be like without any of that. I love that you infused the conference with that because it's so important.
I appreciate that because that was one of the things that people remembered most and found it most interesting about the conference. It was great topics, great speakers, and we'll talk about that in a second. But in between, featuring art and music as a break was mentally clarifying for a lot of people in order to get through a long ass day of learning and being educated. But again, it was purposeful because I have an obsession with the idea of art and music and theater is that I wanted to showcase local performances. It means a lot to me. And because I put it purposefully in the event, it came off authentic and awesome and passionate, and rather than just doing it because you wanted to fill some time. Doing it purposefully, I think, was a key.
You gave your participants the opportunity to pay your speakers by just popping their Venmo accounts into the chat. I want to highlight as something, again, like your conference it's about doing good better, right? Being a do-gooder. Yeah. So it wasn't just exploiting them and saying again, it's all purposeful, tying back to what are we here to do? Who are we? What are we about? Who are we trying to serve? Why are we trying to serve them? And then everything that you did spoke to that. It was super cool. And I'm sorry, the yo-yo guy, what the actual, what?
World Championship yo-yo, a world champion yo-yo performer.
It was amazing.
Right. Amazing. And by the way, as a brain break in between the first 4 hours of the event, to have somebody do yo-yo tricks through music and as a performance, I don't think anybody thought they were buying a ticket to a fundraising conference to watch that. But the comments in the interactions were blown away because it was a mental break that was desperately needed to say, again, it clouds in the back of your mind, wow, if this guy can do this, what are the hurdles that I have about performing or doing an event or blah, blah, blah. That was the whole purpose of it. And unlike events that were trying to be subtle, we weren't. I mean, we were very head on to say, we're going to pay every one of our performance because paying musicians is critical. Paying for the food is critical. But we were very purposeful with that. And then in addition to keep supporting them through their Venmo accounts and doing this as a tip because this is how we're going to get through this. Yeah, the speaker thing was really interesting too because we had two nationally known speakers who were sort of the bookends of our afternoon that we ramped up to. One being Joan Gary, who was probably the biggest fundraising nonprofit leadership guru in the country. To be honest, best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author, who we would have never been able to afford if we had flown her out to do a 90-minute keynote. Couldn't do it because we don't have the capacity.
I want to touch on this because I was just talking to another organizer and I asked him directly, I'll ask you directly, what percentage-wise roughly was the cut or the discount in their fee? I mean, you don't have to name the number, but just percentage-wise.
90 to 95%.
Yeah, so he had said it was at least a 70% reduction. So you're talking paying less than a third of what you normally would pay to have them come.
But here's the thing, and this is the conversation that we had, was the purpose was not to make an abundance of money at the conference. The purpose was to serve the nonprofit world, and that resonated with every one of the speakers who were a part of this event. It didn't matter. It mattered that we were paying musicians. It mattered that we were supporting local businesses and restaurants, where we delivered meals to everyone who purchased a ticket throughout the country. Logistical freaking nightmare. And we can talk about that for another 4 hours. It was just terrible.
Right.
But the fact that we supported those individuals, it was way more important than to the speakers, is because we knew that there was value there. Value. And they were giving value because they knew that not only the clips that we would provide for them, and the fact that this would be one of the first times that they'd be able to do this and then take those clips and then use this to better their own clientele or their own circle of friends or their own circle of nonprofits, was more meaningful to them because we had purpose.
Yeah.
This was a bump up. This was a Hail Mary to nonprofits to figure out how they can learn now rather than later. And that resonated with people enough that when you had a conversation to people who you would never expected to reach out to, picked up the phone and said, this is interesting enough to do. I like where your head's at. I'll do it.
Yeah. It's audacity. It's courage. It's the courage to try, and it's the courage to ask. So I have a few thoughts about just the pandemic in general, what it's doing to people. I've heard so many people say, like, the best of people comes out during this time. And I say, I think the truth of people comes out during this time. So if you're fundamentally a good person, more and more and more of that's going to come up, bubble out, and spill over. If you're a D-bag, it's going to be worse because you see it. Like, I'm sorry, but it's not all roses out here. Like, people are not all being kind. But the people like this, like these people feel unattainable, I think. Ungettable gets, right? Like I said earlier, it feels like a speaker or somebody. You think, oh my gosh, we could never get them. In this time when everyone's like, I just want to do something. I want to help people. I want to give. I want to be of service. It is the time to find the courage and ask for them to partner with you. And you might, just like you, be completely blown away by the answers that you'll get. And you can't ask for the world to serve you a better opportunity than something like this, where everything else it just all feels so uncertain. And the answer is still uncertain, but dig deep and find the courage and ask the question. You just never know.
Yeah, ask it away. And one of the things that I think we were rewarded for with not only the feedback was the participation.
Yeah.
In-person events are very difficult to participate in because you are sitting at a table, or you're sitting at a ballroom table, sitting around with people you don't know or don't really care for, listening to probably half the speakers you really want to hear, and then half you're like, oh, this is clearly Phil, and maybe wandering around from booths that you don't really care about. This was a showcase in what interaction can be, and really one of the points that was exponentially better than in-person events was the interaction that was in the chat area on this virtual event. I don't know the number yet because we're still combing through it a week and a half later to the number of individual comments that those who were participating in the virtual event were talking about throughout this thing. Hundreds.
It was unbelievable. I've got reasons, I've got theories as to why this is. As a person that, again, spends a lot of time, I'm not a great in-person attendee because I literally want to yell amen from the tables and stuff. I always want to be commenting, and often I do at the table, and I'm like a rude person. And I don't mean to be. It's when I get excited and into something, I engage out loud, right?
Immediately. You don't write it down and go, I need to talk about that later. I need to say it now.
Right, exactly. But it's not good etiquette. It's actually not. So I find myself you're almost sitting on your hands, but it's like your mouth. I literally tape my mouth shut. Well, this environment gave everybody the opportunity. It's not rude to blow up a chat line, to blow up the whole box of chat, just go crazy. And you comment to and about people, and people make a comment, and then you tag them back, and you're like, that's hilarious. Or, so you're building two things. It's response. You get questions as the facilitator and the host. You're getting a constant pulse on where people are at, what they're needing more of. It's a way for the event speakers to know where people are at. Like you said, as a speaker, you want the audience to give you something, but because it's not proper etiquette, nobody does it. I can't tell you the number of times that I've been like, okay, so you can actually answer me out loud. And I'll say, no need to raise your hand. Like, just shout it out. I mean, we're so North Dakota nice. Conferences, it's just hard to get people to like jump in and say something. So there was that, but then there was the connection piece too. You didn't have to like give people icebreaker questions, put them at tables and have them talk about a topic like you do at real conferences, because people just naturally created conversation amongst themselves. Those are two things that you can't get in real life as easily.
And in real time, we were pulling out quotes and topic that everyone in the audience was resonating to, and they were doubling down on it. Like, I can't believe she just said that. When we had one of our post-lunch speakers, who is one of my personal heroes.
I already know who it is, I bet. Yeah, go ahead.
So his name is Boulay. He is the founder of Nonprofit AF. He is one of the more fascinating human beings. He's absolutely hilarious, but he is a no-nonsense, no bullshit, cutthroat on the way things have always been done in the nonprofit world. And the truth bombs that he dropped during his 30 minutes during this conference exploded the chat box, because everything that people were listening to was simmering on their minds for the last 5 years.
Yep.
And he's been the only person that these individuals have heard that have said it out loud. I mean, you were looking at this thing. I'm looking at the chat feed. I'm scrolling back after we do our little interview. Again, I'll send you the link to kind of get the replay too, because we're going to upload that for people.
Oh, awesome.
As well.
That's fantastic.
The chat box exploded. And then people who found common ground in, I also believe that, but I didn't know how to say it out loud, or I didn't know that anybody else thought that same way, bonded exponentially quicker than you would have in an environment. Because if he would have said that in a nice, well-lit ballroom, would have been some chuckles and some laughs, but you would have never been able to glance across the room and go, see, I told you so.
Yeah, because or just to look at someone else and say, like, I feel that too.
Yeah. You don't want to get caught saying that.
Right. You created the virtual format, which again, and all we're trying to do is highlight that there are some amazing, beautiful things that can come from this, even though it feels not the same, because it's not the same. We get it. Right. Yep. But you can create a sense of belonging with a little less effort in some respects, because it just naturally occurs.
Yes. And I think people are so natural now on social media to like something or push an amen. And as speakers and as coaches and as business owners, we want interaction on our social media posts all the time. Right? We encourage everyone to write like what they love about our business or what they love about us. Yep. You're getting that in real time for the first time ever as a conference goer. Because you don't get that out. You get it when you send out your survey 2 weeks later and people forgot half of the crap. Yep. Right? In real in-person conferences. Yeah. And you now have real-time proof of what worked and what didn't, even though, you don't even have to send out an actual survey because you have it right in the chat box.
Exactly. And the other thing that you have are marketing assets. Yeah. Like, the idea of like collecting testimonials, you don't have to collect testimonials if you have people's literal words.
Yep.
And that is so cool. I mean, again, like kind of the normal ways that you promote, market, and then post event, how you handle all of that communication with your attendees. So much of it just happened naturally because a chat box makes people, they're not anonymous because your name's there, right? But you're not afraid to say things. There's less risk. So for somebody that never feels that risk, I will generally say what I think because that's how I move through the world.
Yep.
It was a revelation to me to see that happen. Because you don't see it in person. You just don't.
It was so fun to watch. I mean, it was just, you get so excited about those kind of things. And again, I think that's where people felt a sense that this was their event. They almost personalized it because there was nobody else around it. They weren't offended or needed to go chat with anybody. They had their screen, their time, their coffee, their drinks, their lunch, sitting in their environment of their choosing. And whether they wore pants or not was not an issue. Whether they were at home with kids coming in and out was not an issue. They could mute it. They didn't have to. They could just listen to it. I knew people who were doing yard work while they were listening to the conference, or they were mowing their lawn and watching it on their phones, or they were sitting on a deck and they were enjoying a nice day. And it was in an environment where they learned or listened best. And you can't get that in an in-person event. And that was one of the revelations that I think we came up with, was like, holy crap, this is an opportunity.
It is.
To really control a message in an environment where everybody else feels like they are listening in the best scenario.
I think, again, we can't overstate the challenges for some people to even do in-person stuff. Like, again, that is not one of my personal struggles, but you take away all of those barriers of entry for people. Like, what do I wear? And who do I go with? And where do I sit? And how do I act? And all that social stuff.
How early do I have to be there? Do I have to go park? Do I have to go travel? Do I have to go fly? The thing that opened it up was when we did our first event last year, we did it in person, had a lot of people, had 120 people there, 110, 150 people there that day. It was great. Mm-hmm. We had more people show up at this virtual event from 14 states and 3 countries.
Right.
Think about the reach now. We got to talk with nonprofits in places like California and Texas and Florida and Ohio and New Jersey and Canada and Kenya and London, England. These are things that you would have never done.
Right.
Nobody's flying in from London, England to go speak at your event.
Nope.
But you know what? If you make friends on the internet, which you have a lot of friends of, and you find somebody who is purposefully tied to your organization now because you share the same hopes and dreams for nonprofits everywhere, and you ask that person to be one of your speakers for 25 minutes, beaming in from England. Mm-hmm. And that becomes something that you can do now because you're doing it virtually. You now one-upped everything that you've been able to do in person in your local town because you have access to it now. For the first time ever. For the first time ever, anybody's willing to do it. And you might have to pay them. Yes, you might have to send them gifts. I have a package I gotta send to Manchester. That's what I have to do today. Go to the post office and send a box to Manchester. And you know what? I'm glad to do it. Because it's a friend I've made for life now, because we've bonded over something that nobody's ever done. And that we did together as a group. And that now your ties are bound endlessly. And that becomes this wonderful thing of a relationship that you would have not had we not done this virtually.
Yeah. It was so cool. I mean, really, and it was so great to see, because I know you well, and I already knew what you were trying to do. But even if I hadn't, Patrick, it would have been very clear the purpose of that event. It wouldn't have been something where I would have been like, I don't really get why he's doing this. Like, everything had that intention and that mindfulness and that purpose. And, again, as we're talking here, all these things are getting canceled for people.
Yeah.
And I think all I wanted to do was have this conversation with you about helping people see that this is a time to ask, what could we do instead? Especially something like Irrigation Days, which is the name of our summer festival, right? Where we have 2 street dances and we have a tractor pedal pull thing with these little kids. And it's these like super traditional things that we've done every year. And suddenly I just don't want people to think that there's like my community. Now the question is, how do we still show that our community is a great place to live? How do we still show that, we can celebrate what this community is, being here, loving each other? That's what the purpose was.
Yeah.
But the hard thing about it is I just don't know. I think sometimes, and again, Priya Parker, she talks about the fact that we let the process get in the way of the purpose.
Yeah, all the time.
Like, the traditional way that we've always approached the thing gets in the way and hinders us from achieving an actual outcome. And so I know that there are going to be people that are like, screw you, I want to show pigs at the state fair or whatever, because this stuff is taken away from us now. But I am trying to be, and this is why I said to you, when I emailed you or texted you and said, let's do a show, I was like, we need some optimism.
Yeah.
We need some sunshine in this. And I think this is something that all of us have the ability to do is reevaluate the reasons that we are missing those things and asking, what could it look like to create it now?
Yeah. And I think, again, let's use showing pigs, for example.
Yeah. Showing pigs.
What can you do to showcase the hard work and effort you have done to raise what you want to be a blue ribbon winning swine?
Right.
This doesn't stop you from doing the thing that you love. It's just the recognition of some dude or, pinning a ribbon on it, rather than you actually doing it yourself. And the perspective of knowing that you're doing great stuff. even though you're not having the traditional box which you were forced to go into, should be as freeing as possible. So now how do you do it? How do you take a cell phone and do something fun on a TikTok and do a video with your pig? Or how do you take where your pig is now and talking about what you would have talked about to said individual online and taking it to everybody else rather than waiting for them to come to you? This is an advantage that we have never had before. And everybody is jonesing for content right now. Everybody is searching the internet. The reason why Netflix makes so much money now is because everybody is just looking for something to do and watch and participate in.
Right.
We're sitting in front of screens. We're just begging for content and entertainment. Give it to them, and give it to them in a way that you would have never thought possible, that's now completely possible because you are now forced into creating, and you have an opportunity to interact exponentially more than you would have prior to this.
I love this so much. And I love also that we're talking about showing pigs, because I'm guessing that's not a huge part of your background, I'm guessing.
I feel like the SEO on that.
My theater friend.
Yep.
But
you're the suburban Minneapolis theater kid talking about showing pigs. But
I love it.
The best part about this is there's no difference. There's no difference than putting on a performance of, let's just say, whatever you want, a one-act play on a virtual platform. It's like making a mini movie. There's no difference than acting and performing the way that you want to show whatever your hard work has done, and you want the payoff here.
Right.
Everybody is in the same boat. The reality is there's not one person who isn't dealing with this now. This woe is me, I must be the only person on the planet who has had business upended, or who has had their things that they love stopped. Mm-hmm. We're all in it. So acknowledging that out of the gate is step one. Number two is everybody is trying to figure out their own way, so they're going to give you grace. And step three is just execute it, and you are going to see the rewards, whether you learned a lesson from whether it worked or not, or everybody praises you for the audacity of doing it. You win either way. You win.
Yeah.
Either way.
And you know what we're doing here, what we're talking about, I think a huge part of this is giving yourself the thing that you need.
Yeah. Yep.
It's self-care.
Yeah.
Yep. It isn't selfishly motivated, right? No. But it's saying, like, this is what was taken away from me, showing pigs, back to this thing, showing pigs or showing cattle or whatever. You've put in tremendous hours and months and years probably even of work. And if what you need is to have an outlet to say, look at what we did, then you do that for yourself. And it then becomes something that someone else says, man, I loved watching that. I'm going to do that too. I think sometimes we're waiting around for somebody else to give us what we feel like we need. And just do it for you. Do it for your kids. Do it for your family. Do it for your business. And other people are probably going to be inspired by that. And that's, I said in our earlier conversation before on your show, we talked about the fact that people are what's going to get us through this. People, the ingenuity and the innovation, the creativity of people. And that will beat a virus. It's as but like inspiration is as virulent as a virus. That's why I was like, Patrick's got to come on and talk about this right now, because as more and more stuff, like our summers are going to look radically different. That's really hard to wrestle with for a lot of us. And I get it, right? So it's, instead of holding so tightly to the thing that's gone, it's what's the underlying thing that's missing. And again, I'm going to talk one more thing about Priya Parker. She's talking about purpose for events. She says, just keep drilling down. Like, what do you want to host? I want to host a gala. I want to host a fundraising gala. The next question is why? And you just keep drilling down with the question why and answering that question until you hit an actual value or a core belief. And then that becomes the reason, the thing that you need to do. And then once you have that, it could look like 10 million things. Isn't that the point of all of this? I mean,
the whole point.
It could look like anything, but you've got to know what the hell it is that you're aiming for. Like, what's the desired outcome?
What are the top 3 things at irrigation days? Street dance?
The street dances are a big deal. We have a rodeo. So we have a community organization that brings in a rodeo. And I'll just say the demolition derby. Very small town, right?
No, it's perfect. You talked about drilling down. Mm-hmm. Irrigation days is a perfect analogy for drilling down. Where are you going to try and find?
It is.
Where are you going to try? Okay. So we're going to dig down. What's preventing your community from hosting videos of cardboard box demolition derbies in the backyards of every one of your homes within your own community.
Right.
What is preventing you from doing a rodeo with the dogs in the backyard and filming that and updating? What is preventing your community from playing on a local radio station a dance where you're taking photos of your kids in your driveways doing a dance party and voting on the best, coolest dance moves to involve your community?
Exactly.
To know that everybody is doing the same thing and wishing they were doing totally different things, but acknowledging the fact that reality is not letting us do this. You could have so much fun and content for years to comb through if you had organized a very quick, we're going to do this in a very bizarre way. We know this is not going to be the same. But here's a couple of recipes of the things that you would have purchased here anyway.
Yeah.
Here are the ingredients that we are going to teach you how to do. And here's the folks who are going to bring the food are going to teach you how to do it. Thanks, folks who are teaching us how to do it. Now, once you've got that food, go out into the driveway and do this dance party. Here's how you build a cardboard demo car that you would just put on your body and run into each other and, whatever. You can have so much fun with that. And you've drilled down to the essence of what that means, which is everybody being at the same place, experiencing community. And that's the purpose.
Right.
There's no other purpose. Right. People who want to go and have a $5 sippy cup of Coors Light. Okay, that might be it too.
Yep.
Great. Do that in the garage. Get your red Solo cup and fill it up with Coors Light and sit in your garage and watch your kids do a dance party. It's fine.
Yep.
But I think people are prevented from understanding or thinking that it's not going to have the same feel. Good. It's not.
Yeah.
But you need to find the next. You need to find the feel that is what your feels are going to be for the foreseeable future. That's the feels that you want. And it's reminiscing about the good old days. This is exactly what regret sounds like, is I didn't do this and I should have back in the day, right? Do it now. Your regret is going to be not doing something to position yourself or your business or your nonprofit or your community event and doing something now. And then somebody else comes along and does it. You're like, we could have done that.
Right.
Look at that. We could have done that.
That's just it. And I really hope that this conversation, because I could talk to you for days and we have, there've been times we've killed lots of time. I think this is the time to reconnect with, I think what happens in times like this is that all the superfluous shit just goes away because suddenly you just go, well, that wasn't important. So drilling down to what really matters, drilling down to who you are, what you care about, why you're showing up wherever it is you are, if you're a community member or you're a business owner, and saying, what could it look like now? With children running into your room. And, and again, that's the grace is something that it's just like free flowing. And you and I were talking about it, like hosting physical events and physical spaces. You open yourself up to a lot of criticism about every little nitpicky thing. You can throw all of that out of the window now. Yeah, right. Like the room temperature, it was just too cold, or it was loud, or I couldn't really hear this or that. And now you're controlling things you can control. It's also, what this also is co-creation. Yeah. Which, what a beautiful thing. So like you said, I'm a participant coming on your virtual thing. I'm choosing where, I'm choosing how, I'm choosing what I look like. I get to co-create that experience for myself. And it makes it richer because you haven't dictated to me all of those things. I get to pick. And I think, again, it's reframing some of these things that are typically thought of as negatives and saying, but where's the positive in it? Because there are positives to find.
There were a handful of people, most of the people who were speaking at our events traditionally have given speeches or talks within the same realm of conversation. And the box that they normally get is, here, speak for 45 minutes and take 15 minutes Q&A.
Yep.
How can you condense what you mean and get rid of all the fluff that you had in your keynote speech, condense it down to 25 minutes and give everybody every last inch of great advice and things. And the one thing that Joan left with us, and she was our final speaker, and she's just so amazingly generous with her time and her talents and her passion. And her last thing was, you and the nonprofits do hard things. Mm-hmm. And you should be praised for it. because you do hard things. And I think that applies to a lot of businesses and business leaders and nonprofit and community leaders is that we are doing hard things. This is something we've never dealt with before in the history of everyone who's alive has not dealt with this. Mm-hmm. And this is hard. Because it's hard, the payoff is so much more rewarding for those who choose to just face it head on. The way that the nonprofit world is forced to raise money in hard times and make hard decisions and do hard things, and teaching your kids at home is hard, and being home with your spouse all the freaking time is hard. Mm-hmm. And yet we're going to come out of this going, I know what, I appreciated the little things a little better, or I appreciated my space a little more, or I appreciated quiet a little bit more, because we do hard things. And this is a hard time to do stuff in. And knowing that you have the opportunity to do whatever the hell you want to do. And people are going to give you so much grace, and opportunities are endless. But acknowledging first that it's hard, and then saying, all right, well, now that it's hard, what do I want to do, and how do I want to get out of it? And what purpose can I bring to the people that I care about most?
Yep.
Still interact with me, and what I want to do at the end of the day. That's it. That's it.
That's it. While so many things, I thought about this. I was going to write this blog post, and I still may, that it's like, day in and day out, it's this is closed and that's closed and this is canceled and this is canceled. But at that same time, when things get shut off to us, that means space is made somewhere else. That's just natural, right? When something, when you, like an opportunity that you thought you wanted doesn't come your way, now there's space created. So the question I would ask everybody listening to this is, with all the things closing and all the things canceling, what is actually opening up for you? Mm-hmm. And there are things to explore. And I know that it's scary. Exploration without much of a rudder is scary as hell, like it is. But we have to lean out and lean into that discomfort right now, and really cool things and good work, which is ultimately what we're talking about, right? Doing good work, whether it's by your family or, doing better for your family, or it's work at your business or doing your nonprofit work. There's good work that you can do if you exploit and explore what's opening up to you.
Yep.
And having a little audacity too.
That's the key. And now is the time. If you've ever had that inkling in your gut of like, you know what, I'd really like to test what it would be like to be audacious. This is about as good of a time as ever. You're not going to get this opportunity again to be given so much grace for things that don't go the way that you planned it to go.
Right.
So do it and learn everything you possibly can about this, because it's going to be fun. It's going to be so much fun when it's like the other side of this stuff is so much more fun, I think.
I think so too. Thanks for leading the way for us, friends.
Well, thanks for being along on the journey. You're forced, because you're forced to the hip now, because, friendship is going to do that. But your perspective has always been delightful. And I'm so glad that we get to talk about this kind of stuff. Again, where else would we be able to be given the opportunity to talk about audacity and opportunity and taking things and risks? Mm-hmm. And we don't get the opportunity to do that. Right. So this is fun. This was fun for me, because we get to talk about stuff that we normally would mutter to each other in a car ride or over the phone on long distance, traveling stuff.
What we're talking about, though, it's like these are inspirational memes and stuff, like in normal times. Like in good times, it's the kind of thing, it's just like, be brave, be bold. Nope, it actually looks very different when that's the only way forward.
Yes.
When our backs get pushed against a wall, we have choices. We can cower or we can bravely face it. And I get it's very scary, but we couldn't contrive an environment that forced us into innovation or creativity any better. Like, this is what it did. So you're showing people what's possible, which is what I hope from this, is that people walk away feeling a little glimmer of hope for their own futures, for the futures of their businesses and their communities.
Yeah. And again, I think the hope thing is great. And I think you need that, but it's not time to sit back and hope.
No,
you need to
create
that time,
your hope.
You need to create that hope. And you need to get out and do that, because if you just sit on it and just hope things are going to get better, great.
Yep. Nope.
Make that hope happen by doing and executing and communicating and just trying stuff. So that you're 100% right. It's awesome.
Amen, friend. Stay safe, stay well, stay as sane as you can.
Yep. We will. And ditto here for you as well. So thanks for having me on. It'll be fun.
Thank you. Talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Small Town Big Talk Show. If you enjoyed today's show, we invite you to subscribe on Stitcher, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, and we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. The more reviews we get, the easier it will be for other small town friends to find us. We encourage you to keep on living big in your small town, because the size of your life is not determined by your zip code.